Because of why I search the deep through endless nights, no time to sleep. The call inside I can't deny. I'll find the light because of why.
Hey everyone, and welcome. So, picture a big real estate deal in the Caribbean. You're probably thinking the United States, maybe Spain, or Great Britain, right? Well, how about Denmark? Yep, that Denmark. Today, we're diving into the absolutely wild story of sugar, strategy, and a sale that was literally 50 years in the making.
I mean, it almost sounds like a punchline, doesn't it? America buying tropical islands from a country famous for Vikings and pastries? It just doesn't seem to add up. But trust me, there's a fascinating and complicated story here, and we're going to peel back all the layers to figure out exactly how this bizarre deal went down. Now, the deal was finalized in 1917, which might make you think it was just some quick wartime decision. But nope, not even close. This whole thing was a marathon, not a sprint. The U.S. and Denmark had been talking about this on and off for over half a century. It's a seriously long and winding road.
Okay, so to really get this, we've got to look at it from Denmark's point of view first. I mean, they'd had these colonies since way back in the 1600s. Why on earth would they suddenly be ready to sell their piece of paradise? Something big must have changed.
Well, the short answer, as it so often is, comes down to money. The entire economy of these islands was built on one thing, sugar. And that sugar was produced through the brutal system of enslaved labor. So when slavery was finally abolished in 1848, after a major revolt, that was strike one. Then the whole global sugar market just collapsed. And just like that, what was once a cash cow for Denmark turned into a massive financial headache.
And we're not talking about just breaking even here. These islands were actively losing money, a lot of it. We're talking a deficit of around $200,000 every single year. For a relatively small country like Denmark, that was a financial black hole they just couldn't afford.
Okay, so Denmark is losing a ton of money on these islands. They're a bad investment. So why in the world was America so desperate to buy them? Let's flip the script and look at this from the U.S. side of things. Because for them, this was never about sugar. It was about something much, much bigger.
And you've got to understand, this was not an impulse buy for the Americans. They had been trying to get these islands for decades. They tried once, right after the Civil War in 1867. Nope, the Senate said no. They tried again in 1902, this time thinking about protecting the new Panama Canal. But the Danish Parliament shut it down. It was just one failure after another.
So what was different this time? What happened in 1915 that suddenly put this deal on the fast track? Well, one single, massive event changed everything for everybody. World War I. And suddenly, this wasn't just a real estate deal anymore. It was a matter of national security.
Right. The game changer was the Great War. The U.S. was still technically neutral, but they were watching Europe tear itself apart. And they weren't just worried about some vague rival in their backyard. No, they were terrified of a very specific threat, a new kind of weapon that was changing the rules of naval warfare. U.S. military planners were having nightmares about one thing: German U-boats. They looked at the beautiful, deep harbor of St. Thomas and saw a perfect submarine base. The idea of German U-boats operating right there, so close to home, threatening the Panama Canal, threatening the entire East Coast, it was a terrifying possibility. And it wasn't just paranoia. You have Admiral George Dewey writing this memo in 1915, and he lays it out crystal clear. He's saying we need these islands under the American flag before a war breaks out. The point wasn't just to get a base for America, it was to prevent Germany from getting one. This was pure defensive chess.
And think about poor Denmark in all this. They're stuck right in the middle. They're a small, neutral country. They had absolutely no way to defend these islands if a major power like Germany decided to just take them. They were completely exposed.
So the U.S., really worried Germany was about to make a move, basically gave Denmark an ultimatum. The Secretary of State pretty much said, look, you can sell us the islands, or we might just have to occupy them ourselves to keep them out of German hands. It was a classic strong-arm tactic. And it worked. Denmark came back to the table.
And just like that, the deal was finally going to happen. But how it happened, and especially who got left out of the conversation, well, that part of the story says a lot about the priorities of the big players involved.
The final price tag? A whopping $25 million, paid in gold coin. That was the most the U.S. had ever shelled out for territory. But there was a little sweetener for Denmark too. The U.S. also agreed to officially recognize Denmark's claim to all of Greenland, which was a nice little diplomatic bonus for them. And this is it, the actual paperwork that made it all official. The convention between the United States and Denmark for cession of the Danish West Indies. Signed, sealed, delivered, and the islands were set to change hands.
Now, back in Denmark, they actually put the sale to a public vote. And it passed pretty easily. It was even a historic moment because it was the first time women in Denmark got to vote. So you have this step forward for democracy, but there was a huge glaring omission in who got a say. This, to me, is the most incredible part of the whole story. The 26,000 people actually living on the islands, the people whose entire future was being decided, they never got an official vote. Their homes, their nationality, their lives, all sold without their formal consent. It's just staggering.
And if you want to know how the islanders were seen in this whole transaction, just look at this cartoon from the time. It's pretty shocking. You see President Wilson leading away 3 little black children, who represent the islands, as this Mother Denmark figure cries. It's so clear. They weren't viewed as people with a voice, but as property being exchanged.
So on March 31st, 1917, a day they now call Transfer Day, the Danish flag came down and the Stars and Stripes went up. But for the people of the Virgin Islands, this wasn't the end of the story. In a lot of ways, a whole new chapter of fighting for their rights was just beginning.
Yeah, joining the United States didn't mean getting an equal seat at the table, not at all. At first, the islanders weren't even full citizens. They were called American nationals. It took a full decade for them to get citizenship. And it wasn't until 1970, think about that, 1970, that they finally won the right to elect their own governor. Even today, their political status is different. They're citizens, but they still can't vote for president.
So this whole story really makes you wonder, doesn't it? When powerful countries are playing these huge geopolitical chess games, who should really have the final say? The governments making the deals, or the people who actually have to live with the consequences? It's a really tough question, and it's just as relevant now as it was over 100 years ago. What do you think? Let us know down in the comments. I'd love to read your take on it. And hey, if you found this story as fascinating as I did, do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next deep dive.